She wrapped both hands around the blade and was able to get some leverage, so she brought both of her legs up to her chest and kicked him as hard as she could.
Hell yeah.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's me, Rachel.
Hello. It's me, Rebecca.
Glad to have you here.
Excited to be here. Excited to tell you about some horrible things that go on in this world and the shitty people responsible for them.
Mm-hmm.
They are truly the worst. If you're new here, welcome. If you like us, subscribe, follow us, give us a little review. Just say a little something, something. It can literally be just something, something. You can type out something. It just really helps us get up the charts on Apple, at least. I know Spotify, you cannot leave a review, but you can still, hit that 5-star, please.
Yeah, well, and now you can comment on episodes in Spotify.
That's true.
We also have a Patreon, the Apple subscriber thing with bonus episodes. Just check it out.
Tell all your friends, and also follow us on Instagram, TikTok. I'm getting real nervous about this TikTok going away in the United States thing, and we have a pretty hefty following on TikTok. So if you follow us there and not Instagram, just go ahead and follow us on Instagram as well, because we just don't know. It's always in the news. TikTok's going away. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not.
Oh,
so
God.
No,
I want nothing to do with that.
Who knows? But I think that's where a lot of our listeners come in from. So go follow us on Instagram just in case. Thank you.
Word. All right. Sorry for starting out so
promoty.
It's promoty. Thank you. All right. I'm going to jump in.
Please.
Y'all, a listener suggested this, so thank you. And I actually started going through to see if I could find who it was. It was an Instagram comment. You know who you are, or an Instagram message. You know who you are. Thanks. I actually knew the story, but I was like, anything new? And there have been some recent developments, some controversies that have recently come out. So I decided to move it up my list. And if you're unfamiliar with this case, a key witness at the trial will be very unexpected. So just stick to it. Stick to it to the end.
Okay.
I'm telling y'all about the Hollywood Ripper. Sources: Chicago Magazine, CBS News, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, a show called How It Really Happened, which I've never heard of, but it's like an investigative show. It's good.
Chicago's not near Hollywood.
Oh, I know. Crazy, right?
Right.
There's a connection.
Okay.
Ashley Ellerin was born on July 16th, 1978 in Los Altos, California. She was pretty and outgoing, and in 1996, she graduated high school and started college at UCLA, but ultimately transferred to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising to pursue her dreams of becoming a fashion designer.
Fit 'em,
if you will. If you watch The Hills circa whatever that was, you're familiar with Fit 'em. Is that what you thought about?
Yeah, it crossed my mind, but it's not my main source of thought there. I know a lot of people went to Fit 'em.
Nope, just Lauren
Conrad. Just Heidi and Lauren.
And Heidi, thank you. In 2001, 22-year-old Ashley and her roommate Jennifer DeSisto were renting a little bungalow in Hollywood and living the life.
Oh my God.
They're young. They have a ton of friends. They have a lot of parties. Just fun times. On February 21st, 2001, Ashley's dad was in town, I think helping her do house stuff, just projects and things around the cute little bungalow, maybe killing crickets. I don't know.
Why killing crickets?
Because that's what we would call our dad for.
I know, but I don't think California has those disgusting basement crickets like the South does. Maybe.
I know. Have we mentioned that we used to call our landlord in college to come kill crickets? Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure. So her dad was in town, but around 5 p.m., she took him to the airport so he could head back home to Northern California. She went back home and started getting ready for a date she had that night. And her roommate, Jennifer, left to go stay the night at her boyfriend's place. Early the next morning on February 22nd, 2001, Jennifer came home and noticed all the lights were on, which she thought was weird because normally Ashley slept in. So she was like, is she up? She walked further into the house and found Ashley lying on the floor outside of their bathroom covered in blood.
Oh.
She initially thought that it was a not funny practical joke, so she got closer and saw that sadly it wasn't. Ashley
Oh,
was
God.
clearly dead. There was so much blood that her hair was matted in it.
Yeah. Oh.
So Jennifer grabs her cell phone and runs out to call 911 from her car because she's scared that someone's still in the house.
Mm-hmm.
LAPD gets there and immediately obviously pronounce her dead. She had been stabbed 47 times.
Jesus.
All over, neck, head, chest, everywhere. It was so brutal that she was nearly decapitated.
Oh.
We've had that a lot lately.
Yes, we have.
We've had that a lot lately. It's sick.
Which in the last one compared to Nicole Brown Simpson, which
Ugh.
this is taking place not too far from there.
No.
So that's insanity.
Yeah, it's not an OJ connection.
Uh,
Just so y'all are aware.
It's 2001. Yeah.
Yeah.
OJ's been freed and clear since this took place.
Right. LA detective well, he did go to prison, but whatever.
Oh, sure. He went to prison, but not for murder.
No. LA detective Tom Small is assigned the case, and he sees that there's no forced entry, so she likely knew her attacker, which is a given with how brutal it was. Very personal. Plus, there was $300 cash on the counter, and she was wearing nice jewelry, but none of that was touched. So obviously not a robbery gone wrong such. It never is. And she was not sexually assaulted.
Well, sometimes it's a robbery gone wrong, but not in 47 stab wounds, like a gunshot to the head or something like that.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So she was not sexually assaulted. She was sexually posed. I don't have the details on that, but she was posed in a way.
That's a dick move.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of evidence. All the blood found was Ashley's. And with it being the go-to hangout spot for their big group of friends, it's almost impossible to know whose fingerprints and DNA belong there, whose doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
The stab wounds on her neck were made from right to left, which led them to believe the killer was left-handed.
Stab wounds were made right to left.
Made right to left.
Oh, okay.
You know, like if the guy were to come up behind someone and with the knife in their left hand, right to left to slit a throat. So they think he's left-handed.
Yeah, totally.
They start questioning everyone in her life, which is hundreds of people. They ask her closest friends who could have done this. They have no idea. Her roommate Jennifer was like, I mean, there's a creepy neighbor named Mike, but they didn't even know his last name. And she didn't know anyone who hated Ashley, especially this much.
Yeah.
They talked to her date from the night before, and he told them that they were supposed to get drinks and go to dinner. And he called her at 8:24 p.m. to say he was running late and he should be there around 10 p.m. Ashley said that's fine. She had just gotten out of the shower and she was about to blow dry her hair and she'd see him around 10. He ended up being really late and didn't get there to pick her up until around 10:30 or 10:45 p.m. All the lights were on, so he knocked on the door. She didn't answer. He kept knocking and he tried to walk in, but the door was locked. So he figured she must have been mad that he was late and left to go out with friends.
I do not like that he tried to open the door. Oh, she knew him.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like early 20s, you know, I'm thinking Hinge and Bumble. This is 2001. No. My bad.
2001. They knew each other.
Okay. Yeah.
So he tries to go in, it's locked. So he figures she's pissed. She went out with friends. So he goes to leave, but before he does, he peeks in the window where he saw what he thought was red wine spilled on the carpet. He didn't think anything of it because they had recently had a big party, so he just left.
Ooh, okay.
He then told police that he was freaking out because his fingerprints were on the doorknob since he tried to open it, but he swears he had nothing to do with this. And they're like, we'll see. Then Detective Small learns about someone Ashley was secretly having a relationship with. His name was Mark Durbin. Mark was 18 years older than Ashley, and he was their landlord.
Ooh.
He moved to LA to pursue acting because, duh.
That's what you do.
That's what it is. He'd been in a couple of small parts, nothing notable. There was an episode of Frasier. I think he was on. That's the only thing I recognized in his list. Police talked to him and learned that he was actually at Ashley's house earlier in the night and when she was getting ready for her date, and the two had sex. He was cooperative, as was the date, so they're put aside for now, and the investigation keeps moving. A witness came forward and said that he was walking his dog at the park across the street from their house around 8:30 the night she was murdered, and he heard a scream. The scream was so loud that the dog looked up and stared at Ashley's house and, like, wouldn't
Oh.
move. So
Oh, good
so
dog.
I know. So this account helps police determine that she was murdered right around 8:30 PM, literally minutes after she got off the phone with her date.
Oh,
Remember, he called
Jesus.
it 8:24.
Confirmed he called at
Yeah.
8:24?
Eventually, leads run cold. Nothing really pans out. Nobody knows anything, and the case stalls.
Interesting. Okay.
3 years later, in November 2005, a 32-year-old single mom of 4 kids named Maria Bruno had just moved into an apartment complex in El Monte, California, which is just an area of LA. She and her husband, Irving, had recently separated, and she chose this complex because it was gated and safe.
Oh,
The night
right.
of November 30th, 2005, Maria and her husband went out to dinner and then a bar together. They were sort of rekindling, trying to make it work. They ended up leaving Maria's car at the bar, and Irving, the husband, drove them back to Maria's apartment around 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
They hung out there for a little bit, and Irving ends up leaving around 2:45 a.m. and told her he'd be back early in the morning so they could go get her car. He came back a few hours later at 7:45 a.m. and knocked, but there was no answer. So he turned around to leave and notices that the screen on her kitchen window is on the ground. So he climbs through the kitchen window and makes the
Oh,
most
God.
horrifying discovery.
Uh-huh.
Maria was lying there in a pool of blood. Her throat was slit and she'd been stabbed multiple times. She was also sexually mutilated.
Oh.
I feel like y'all get
Oh.
as squeamish as we do sometimes. I don't have to go into the
Oh.
detail. It's gross.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. We get it. Sexually mutilated is
Plenty.
typically awful.
Okay, well, she was not sexually assaulted.
Oh, God.
It's insane. So Irving, the ex-husband who discovered this, calls 911, and when police get there, they find a blue surgical booty outside of her apartment door, and the booty had 1 drop of blood on it.
Okay. This is so many stories wrapped up in one. I'm
Yeah,
getting,
yeah.
yeah, I'm getting,
I figured y'all would expect that too because it's called the Hollywood Ripper. Like, he's clearly a serial killer.
Oh, no. I'm not saying like so many stories you're telling me about in one. I'm saying like I was getting Moscow, Idaho vibes / Napa Valley murder vibes because they're like
yeah.
in their 20s or living, their best lives in
Uh-huh.
their 20s. Now we have a blue surgical booty, not glove, but had it been a glove, it would have been very reminiscent of Tara Grinstead. Just
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot.
Yeah, totally. So the booty had 1 drop of blood on it. Unfortunately, further testing showed that it was Maria's blood, the 1 drop, just in case they keep the booty for evidence. But aside from that, there's no foreign DNA found in her apartment, no fingerprints, nothing. Investigators look hard at her estranged husband, obviously. The relationship was volatile. There were incidents of physical abuse. He told them that they were actually planning on getting back together, and he had nothing to do with this. They weren't convinced, so they tested for blood in his car, and they found Maria's blood in there.
Oh.
But Irving, the husband, I'm just going to keep clarifying that,
Yeah.
told them that Maria had cut herself at dinner and her finger was bleeding. That's why her blood's in there. They went and likely story.
I don't like it.
Right.
And I don't like he left at 3 a.m. Essentially, he's back by 7. Like,
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. They go to talk to the restaurant manager where they had dinner, and he actually confirms this. He helped he wrapped her finger. She did cut herself, and she was bleeding when she left, he said.
Damn. All right.
And it was like that amount. It wasn't massive amounts of blood. Like, it was like, drops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sketchy. Weird coincidence.
Yeah.
So investigators start talking to other people that lived in the apartment complex, and one resident who lived across the courtyard from Maria's apartment, which just for a visual, this complex has apartments all facing each other in a circle with a pool and a courtyard in the middle,
Okay. Yes.
So this person lived like across the courtyard from Maria's apartment. This neighbor told investigators that a few days before the murder, he saw Maria walking into her apartment with groceries, and a guy was following her And when she walked in, he walked in behind her, but immediately walked out like with his hands up as if she turned around like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Really?
Yeah, he like made 2 steps in and then was like, "All right, all right, all right. I'm out, I'm out, I'm out."
Huh.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
The neighbor recognized the man as someone he'd seen around the apartment complex before. He described him as white, but possibly of Italian descent, and then he gave a good description of his height and weight. But they weren't 100% sure who it was. It's not like he saw him every day. So he was like,
Mhm.
"We don't know who he is." And it doesn't necessarily implicate him for murder. He didn't know what that situation was, the neighbor.
Yeah.
So again, without hard evidence in Maria's case, it goes cold. In April 2008, 26-year-old Michelle Murphy was living in an apartment in Santa Monica, California. She came home from work, did some laundry, worked out, watched TV, and just sort of chilled before getting into bed and falling asleep. At about 11:45 p.m., an hour after she fell asleep, she woke up to a man in a black hoodie straddling her and holding a serrated knife.
Oh my God.
In the split second it took for her to come to and realize that it wasn't a nightmare, he started stabbing her in the chest and arm.
Oh, poor thing. What's her name?
Michelle Murphy.
Michelle.
Michelle started screaming at the top of her lungs, "Why?" But the
Oh,
man stayed completely silent. So she started fighting like hell.
get it, Michelle.
She wrapped both hands around the blade and was able to get some leverage. So she brought both of her legs up to her chest and kicked him as hard as she could.
Hell yeah.
He goes flying off the bed, but he gains control of the knife again.
Mm.
This works in her favor, though, because as he slams into her bedroom door, he accidentally cuts his wrist with it.
It's real. Like his main vein right there?
Wrist. I don't know which part.
Oh, okay. I was like, damn, is he gonna bleed out and die right here? That'd be phenomenal.
No. So, but he is profusely bleeding all over the place, and he knows it's over. Michelle won. He gets up to run out of the apartment, and as he does, she hears him speak for the very first time.
Oh shit.
He yells, "I'm sorry," and then bolts out the door, leaving a trail of blood.
All right. Let's get this. I'm gonna go ahead and say it was definitely if he's gushing blood and he's aborted his mission, it's
Yeah,
gonna be that crucial vein there.
right. Michelle immediately locked her apartment door and then looked over to her window to see that it was open and the screen was cut. She had actually opened it to fall asleep, but she had a screen because it was just nice out.
Yeah, yeah.
So the screen was cut. That's how we got in. So she
Oh
locked
god.
all the windows too, calls her boyfriend, and then calls 911.
Oh my god. It's terrifying.
She's taken to the hospital. She had been stabbed 8 times.
Oh my god.
She had surgery on her hands and countless stitches, but all in
Oh,
all, she's okay. And her badassery meant that there was DNA left behind.
yeah.
She didn't know who the man was and didn't have a good description because it was dark. And again, he's wearing a dark hoodie. But she said he had a muscular build, maybe about 5'9", was wearing a dark hoodie, and was stabbing with his left hand.
All right. Just like they said. Oh, and there's a body-shaped indention in my door there.
Because I'm a
Mhm.
badass and kicked the shit out of him. They collect blood samples from the apartment, and within about a week, they got a match.
Oh, hell yeah.
It was to a guy named Michael Gargiulo.
Mm.
Michael was a 32-year-old dad, and his DNA was in the system because he was a person of interest in a 1993 cold case back in Chicago, the murder of Tricia Paccacio.
How does that sound familiar?
So pause present day for a second. We're going to go back to 1993. I'm going to tell you about Tricia's murder.
Okay.
Tricia Paccacio was born in 1975 in Chicago, Illinois. She had a younger brother and was really smart. She graduated high school and got a full ride to Purdue University, where she was going to be studying engineering. On August 13th, 1993, 18-year-old Tricia was out celebrating her high school graduation with friends before they all headed off to college. They did a scavenger hunt and then went to a TGI Fridays. Then I think
Mhm.
hung out in some parking lot as you do when you're 18.
Mhm.
Around 1 a.m., a bunch of them got into Tricia's car and she drove them all home. She dropped off the last person and pulled into her driveway around 1:30 a.m., but she never made it in the house.
Oh my god.
The next morning, her dad found her on the front porch with her keys in her hand.
Stop.
She had been stabbed 12 times and was sadly dead. They collected DNA from under her fingernails, but it was 1993, so they couldn't do much with it.
Yeah.
So years go by with no movement in her case.
He was waiting on her.
Oh, they think he was hiding in the bushes.
Yeah, obviously.
Right. Finally, in the early 2000s, a cold case detective took over the case, and with advancements in technology, he started comparing the DNA from under her fingernails against the men in Tricia's life back then to start ruling people out. One of the people on their list who they talked to back in 1993 was Tricia's younger brother's best friend, a then 17-year-old Michael Gargiulo.
Mm.
They really didn't have a lot of reason to suspect him back then, but he lived really close to Tricia's family. He was a part of the group that went out to the scavenger hunt, and they talked to everyone who was there. So they just kind of questioned him. So fast forward to this cold case detective taking it over, and they learned that he now lives in LA, and they want to get his DNA.
They being Tricia's detectives.
Yeah.
Michelle hasn't happened yet.
Nope. We're still
Okay.
back in that. That's why I said Paul's
Just-
present day. We're going back to Tricia. We're going
Okay.
telling you about Tricia right now.
You're just telling us how Michael's DNA got in the system at all.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So they found out the Chicago detectives found out he was living in LA. They want to get his DNA. Found out where he's living, and 4 of them go knock on his door to ask for his DNA, just so they can eliminate him. He opens the door and tries to run through them.
All 4.
All 4 of them, which is hilarious.
They're like, excuse me, what are you doing? Get back.
One of them puts his hand just against his forehead, and he's Michael's still running full speed. And they're like,
Running in place.
can you stop? LOL.
Right. We're packing heat. Get out of here.
So because of this charade, they handcuff him and took him to the nearest hospital, where they essentially forced a swab into his mouth. I'm not sure how that's allowed, but that's fine, because the damnedest thing, it was a match. But Chicago District Attorney, so they're like, got a match. They take it to the Chicago District Attorney. They're like, hey, our boy's living in LA, let's arrest him. And they said that was not enough to charge him with her murder.
To find his DNA under her fingernails?
No, they said
murder victim's fingernails.
Since he was friends with her brother and he was at their house a lot, and they pointed out that the day before her murder, Michael gave Tricia a ride somewhere. So they argued it's not that weird that DNA was on her.
But under her finger, not on her shoulder.
I know.
They've constantly gotten, slapping fights, scratching fights.
Right.
What are you talking about?
And that logic doesn't make sense anyway, because she was with a big group that night, and none of the other people's DNA was on her, even on her. There was only one DNA that wasn't hers, even though she was with a bunch of people. So where's all their DNA? What?
That is the stupidest thing. People got fired over that, I'm sure. Right? Right.
No, not that I know of, but anyway. And I'm sure Chicago PD or detectives were like, did we tell you about the part where he tried to run through us when he asked, when we asked about DNA? That's sketchy, right? It's not right. Can't be.
We're asking you to give your DNA from a murder that took place a decade ago, and you're going to run through us? That just seems suspicious to me.
Sus. So that's why his DNA is in the system.
Okay.
And how he went on to, in 2008, attack Michelle, and we got a match.
Right.
So now we're back at Michelle's crime scene.
The survivor,
the badass. They tracked down where he lived, and as it turns out, he was living across the alley from Michelle in Santa Monica. Same apartment complex. His window could actually see into her apartment.
Ooh.
He's immediately arrested and charged with the attempted murder of Michelle. And as detectives or LAPD now are looking into his background, they see that before he lived in the apartment next to Michelle, he lived in an apartment in El Monte, the same one as Maria did at the time of her murder. Because of this, they revisit Maria Bruno's case and go to his old apartment in El Monte. There had been several tenants since he moved out. It was actually vacant at the time, so there's nothing there. But there was a little storage attic that they decided to look in, and there they found a bag with a Father's Day card that was made out to Michael with his name on it.
Oh.
And a blue surgical bootie, the exact match to the one they found outside of her apartment.
All right, let's go.
They re-examined the booty they found at the scene, and this time they pulled DNA from the elastic around, like, where your ankle would hit,
Oh, yeah. Nice.
and they got a match to Michael. I guess back in 2005, they only matched the blood, which was, again, Maria's,
Yeah.
or they only tested the blood. So in addition to being charged with the attempted murder of Michelle, he's now charged with Maria's murder. And just as a reminder, he has not been charged with anything wrong. I mean, with anything in Tricia's murder. That
Still.
that was just why he was in the system. That was it.
Oh my God.
But so these two LA murders, now the pieces are starting to come together.
Mm-hmm.
Then they revisit Ashley's murder, the very first murder in LA,
Uh-huh.
2001.
Right.
Not only was her murder very similar to what seemed to be his MO, young, pretty women brutally attacked with a knife by someone left-handed, which he was,
Oh,
by the
right.
way.
Mm-hmm.
None of them sexually assaulted, but both Maria and Ashley were sexually posed, and he lived less than a block from her. This is creepy neighbor Mike that Ashley's friends told detectives about
Oh,
back in 2001, right after her
yes.
murder.
I knew there was a Mike. I remembered Mark, but I was like, who's creepy neighbor? Yeah, okay.
Creepy
Uh-huh.
neighbor. This was creepy neighbor Mike. Back then,
Creepy indeed.
back then, they all knew him as Mike the furnace guy because he was an air conditioning repairman. Hence the booties. You know, when people come into your house to do service,
Yeah.
they wear booties. He met Ashley while her and her friend Chris were out in front of her house changing a tire, and he came up and asked if they needed help. He was young and lived in the neighborhood, so he and Ashley exchanged numbers, but he started showing up to their parties uninvited. He'd pop
Ew.
over unannounced. Her
No.
friends did not like him, and they said he just seemed infatuated with Ashley.
Ew.
Once one of their ex-roommates came home at like 2 a.m. and Michael was in his car parked outside of the house just staring at it.
Uh-uh.
He creeped them out. During their parties, he would just stare at her if she walked in a room. He could be mid-conversation. If she walked in, he would just stare.
Oh God. This guy's a father?
Yes.
Ew.
And I don't know when in this life he had a baby, but he did.
Mm-hmm.
They actually had a party a week before Ashley was murdered, and there's a picture of Ashley and her friends just having fun, and you can see Michael lurking in the background. It is
Ew.
it's eerie. I'll post it, obviously.
Obviously.
So Ashley's friends told detectives all of this back in 2001, right after she was murdered, but there was no evidence, so they really couldn't do anything about it. Like, he's a creep.
Ugh, it's not illegal to be creepy type thing.
Right, there was no
Which we've
DNA.
also said before in several stories. That's what the cops say. Unfortunately, it's not illegal to be a lurker.
Right.
But like to a point,
Well,
standing outside your house staring and be like, I know
it's
peeping Tom law, like all that was not.
he wasn't peeping Tom, he was just staring at the house, he wasn't looking in a window.
All right.
It's weird, but so they told detectives this right after the murder. It did start to raise red flags when Detective Small heard about the Chicago detectives coming to look into Michael about another murder from 1993. So they were like, there is something really off about that.
Yeah.
It's too much of a coincidence. Like, now her friends are creeped out by this guy after their friend's murder, and now these detectives are like, "Hey,
Yeah.
we
He's
need
a
to speak to
suspect.
the
Yeah.
suspect about a murder from the 90s." And he's like, "What? That's creepy Mike.
Uh-huh.
That's creepy
Mm-hmm.
neighbor Mike. I know about him."
Right.
So they were sus.
Yeah.
So while circumstantial for the most part, they also charge him with Ashley's murder.
Yeah. For sure.
In 2011, there was a 48 Hours episode about Michael, who now became known as the Hollywood Ripper.
Mm-hmm.
Two guys named Tamir Leary and Anthony DiLorenzo saw the show, which was recapping all the murders, obviously, and they're like, holy shit. They used to work with Michael as bouncers at an LA nightclub in the late 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
One night, they were all hanging out, and Michael told them that he killed a girl in Chicago. He told them that he stabbed her and left her on the steps of her house for her dad to discover. Back then, they were like, sure. But after seeing this 48 Hours and the details of his crime, they were like, holy shit, we need to call authorities. This finally led him to being charged with Tricia's murder.
I don't understand how if anyone said I killed someone in the 90s and gave this detail about like I left her on the steps, I'm not gonna think they're lying. I'm like, what? I'm calling cops, I think.
Yeah.
Don't you? I mean,
Of
not to
course.
blame them. I know that always happens where it's like, he said he murdered someone. We didn't believe him. We thought he was trying to like be cool. I'm like that, but that's not cool. That's like like
He did have a reputation for stories like this. Like, he told
he wanted to be
originally
tough.
oh,
Yeah.
he wanted to be a badass. He originally told Ashley's friends that he was in a big lawsuit over some accident from some huge LA corporation. He was about to come into millions. Like, that was all bullshit. He told
Mm.
people he moved to LA originally because he was a pro boxer. Bullshit. I mean, he was very
Okay.
known
All
for
right.
being
He
a
wanted
little
to be, yeah.
liar.
Okay. He wanted to be known as a tough guy.
Yeah. So
Okay,
they're
I
like,
get it.
another story from Mike. But then they saw that 48 hours and they're like, oh, we should tell you about this. Finally, in 2011, charged with Tricia's murder.
Finally.
So first, he's going to be tried in LA for Ashley Maria's murder and the attempted murder of Michelle. Then he's going to be extradited to Chicago for Tricia's murder trial.
Yeah.
But he spends years like working the system to delay this shit. He's hiring and firing lawyers. At one point, he says he's representing himself, which I wish he did.
Yeah, I would love that.
It's just delay after delay after delay. And his trial in LA doesn't start until May 2019. 11 years.
Jesus.
11
Oh my
years
god,
after
and then
his
effing
arrest.
COVID's gonna happen, and you're gonna delay me again.
No, it goes.
Okay,
It
thank
starts.
you.
The state was seeking the death penalty and had a few key witnesses. Obviously, Michelle Murphy, the survivor, the badass, she
Mhm.
testified. Go girl.
Right.
Another star witness was Ashley's date from the night she was murdered.
Oh.
He was crucial for the timeline, so they brought him in to testify. And who was it?
Oh, shit.
Ashton Kutcher.
Oh, I do.
That's right.
Okay.
Remember?
Yes. Yes, I do remember this.
I'm going to say it again, though. Stick around to the end because holy shit,
There
something.
was recent yeah, okay.
Okay, well, something damning has come up since.
F
Okay?
yeah, okay.
That I did not, I obviously knew that part. I did
Uh-huh.
not know what came up.
Oh my god, yes. All right. I saw something recently coming yeah, yeah. All right, you go. I didn't click on it.
Great. Ashton testified that he and Ashley met at a birthday party in 2000.
Mhm.
And the night she was killed, he was supposed to be their first date. They were actually going to a Grammys after party. But
Yeah.
he was late, figured she was mad that he was that late, and just went out with friends. Again, he peeked in the window, saw what he thought was spilled red wine.
Right.
Michael's defense essentially wants the death penalty off the table. They said he suffered from a mental disorder that put him in a fugue state when he committed his crimes and he didn't remember any of them, and because of this he was essentially asleep.
Well, security the bouncers at that club 10 years later beg to differ. Like, well, he seemed to have a pretty good
Yeah.
memory for Tricia's murder back
No,
in the
there's a
90s. So,
million. No, the prosecutor was like, "Nah. These
nah.
murders were very meticulously planned. He stalked his victims and always
Yeah.
struck right after a man left the house." So
Mm.
when the question came of like, who was the last one with her, the man would be the answer, not Michael. Like,
Oh,
so with
right.
Ashley, it
Yeah.
was Mark Durbin. The guy had just left the house. With
Right.
Maria, it was her ex-husband Irving, just left her house.
Right.
With Tricia, he was, they believe, hiding in the bushes. He knew
Right.
where she was that night. He knew she was dropping people off. The people in the car would have been the last people seen with her. All of
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Very planned. The jury agreed, and in August 2019, he was found guilty on all counts and actually was sentenced to death, but that likely won't happen in California. Executions have been halted for years. They haven't executed anyone since 2006.
Let me guess where he's sitting.
Well, San Quentin, but not now. There's more coming.
I know he had a Chicago murder, but yes, of
Okay.
course, San Quentin.
During victim impact statements, Maria Bruno's ex-husband, Irving, broke down in tears about how he had to tell their 4 kids what happened to their
Oh,
mom. And
fuck.
Michael put his stupid fucking fingers in his ear like a little bitch so he didn't have to hear it.
Are you
No, 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 no.
joking?
Douche.
What a douche. I would have pried those things out of his ears if I were.
I know.
Oh my God.
In September of this year, like 2 months ago, he was finally extradited to Chicago, where he awaits trial for Tricia's murder. There's
Oh,
no
shit.
start date yet, but it's coming. So he's in Chicago now. Some recent damning allegations regarding Ashton Kutcher's part in this.
Oh, shit. Okay, first, can I ask, is Trisha's family still alive? She was, okay, 1893.
Yeah,
Okay, they're still alive.
they're
Okay.
still around. Yep,
Thank God.
I know. Some recent damning allegations regarding Ashton Kutcher's part in this.
Did he know Ashton Kutcher was her date? Was he really going to try to pin it on him? Well, okay, you just tell me.
Her murder was in 2001. He was very up and coming.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a 70s show, I think, was starting. He was much more famous now than he was then. Is what I'm
Sure.
saying.
Okay.
So, if you remember, in 2023, Danny Masterson was
Oh,
convicted of 2 counts of rape and sentenced to 30 years in prison.
yes.
Danny was an actor who starred on that 70s show. He was also Ashton's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Right before his sentencing, Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis wrote letters to the judge in favor of Danny, essentially talking about what a great guy he is, pushing for leniency, pretty much.
Mm.
The letters somehow got released. They clearly only meant for the judge to see them. They got
Oh,
released
shit.
to the public, and it was very controversial. You don't remember this?
No, I remember Danny. Yes, of
No, I
course.
know, but the letters.
No.
Oh, okay.
Mm-mm.
Mila and Ashton are apparently big advocates against sex trafficking, so people were pissed that they were standing up for this
Yeah.
rapist.
Right.
This is not Hollywood hot goss corner. There's a reason I'm telling y'all this.
Mm-hmm.
In the letter, Ashton calls Danny his role model.
Stop.
I know they're really bad. Oh my god. I mean, ugh. And then they like did a video apologizing for the letters, but and it did not help.
No.
They're just like clearly reading it's very cringy.
Okay.
Anyway, when the letters were published in September 2023, one of Danny's victims named Chrissy took to social media and dropped a bomb.
Oh, God.
Chrissy dated Danny in the late 90s and early 2000s, and this is what she posted. Dear Ashton, I know the secrets your role model keeps for you, ones that would end you. Did you forget I was there? You were on speakerphone that night you called Danny on February 21st, 2001. I heard everything. I heard the plan. In my opinion, you're just as sick as your mentor. Mentor and role model were quotes.
I got
That,
chills.
the night she's referring to, February 21st,
Yeah.
2001, was the night Ashley was murdered. There's a YouTube show called Growing Up in Scientology who spoke to Chrissy and digs into this more. Danny Masterson was a Scientologist. That's why this guy on this
Oh,
YouTube
okay.
he really goes into him.
Mm.
She's not alleging that Ashton had anything to do with the murder. She's saying he lied to police and hindered the investigation, essentially allowing this monster to walk free and kill again before he was finally locked up. Here's what she says happened.
Oh, my God.
This is all alleged. Don't come after
Alleged.
me. Alleged? Did y'all
Mm.
hear it? Allegedly? She said that when Ashton went to pick up Ashley for their date, he actually did walk in the house and was the one who discovered her. Rather than call police, he went to his car and called Danny Masterson, freaking out that if he calls police, his name would be associated with the murder and he may even be a suspect, which would ruin his up and coming career.
Oh, my God.
Danny was with Chrissy and had Ashton on speaker during this call.
Oh.
Danny told him to go on to the Grammys party, act like nothing happened, let someone else discover her, and when police inevitably talk to you, tell them you knocked and you had no idea anything was wrong.
What?
If this is true, he not only added hours and hours to an investigation that could have started right away, but he allowed the investigation to be started with the wrong information, which again, huge hindrance,
Yeah.
all to protect his career. Allegedly, LAPD figured out he was lying because there were discrepancies, but had him maintain his story because if the jury found out that he had lied about discovering the body, there's reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt right
Oh,
there.
yeah. Yeah.
The defense could have easily leveraged that with like, what? The star witness lied. Shouldn't he be a suspect? Like, awful.
Right.
It would be a terrible thing for the case because ultimately they all know Michael did it.
Yeah.
Nothing has really come from this allegation, but Chrissy is saying that because of this, cops wasted time, started the investigation late, Michael could have been caught much sooner, but he went on to murder again and attack another woman. And those are just the victims we know of. He may have more. We have no idea.
Oh my God.
So who knows? And then I'm wondering, like, if that were true, I was like, well, then why does it even say the thing about red wine, like spilled on the carpet?
Yeah.
But if that was an obvious, no, you would have seen, because there was a big window in this bungalow, you would have seen shit on the floor. So that maybe Danny and Ashton like cooked up say it was wine or something. Who cares? I don't know.
Oh my God.
Who knows? I hope that someone wouldn't find a victim of such a heinous attack and not call for help, but nothing in Hollywood surprises me. So honestly, I don't know.
I cannot believe that.
Isn't that crazy? So I'm glad that
I'm like, the headspace I would be in. If I'm calling anyone, it's the cop. Like, I'm not even calling my best friend.
He apparently called allegedly, he called his manager too. He called both.
Oh my God.
So,
well, he was keeping Danny secrets too. So he knew Danny would keep, but I'd be like, oh God, that is horrible.
I know.
Horrifying.
Isn't that bad? Glad that monster Michael's locked up now.
Yeah.
And that's the story of the Hollywood Ripper, which honestly, I hate even giving him a nickname. I'm sure he loves it. Who knows? Michael Gargiulo, who is the absolute worst.
The worst.
Patrons: Belinda, Steph, Zena, Avery, Morgan, Joseph, and Kyle. Hey, what's up?
Hey,
thank y'all for joining.
Thank you so much for joining.
And then I have a few custom shout outs. The first one's from Hope. Shout out to my incredible husband and his business, MNR Gutter. He's worked so hard to build his name. If you're near Mississippi, look him up. Oh,
hey.
We were just in Mississippi like 2 days ago. It was so fun. And to Amber Goodwin for telling me about the best podcast. Oh my God, thanks, Amber.
Was it us? Was it ours, or is it someone else? Was she going to shout out another podcast?
So yeah, Mississippi, look them up. MNR Gutter, and good job. Yeah. And Amber, thanks for introducing.
Thanks.
All right, next one, Lexi. Mama Stace, you're the best mama ever. My mom Stacy introduced me to your podcast, and I fell in love with it, just like she did. Thank you for giving us something we can bond over. Oh, that's nice.
That is nice. Thanks for listening, guys, and subscribe. I mean, joining Patreon.
Yeah,
Patreon, whatever.
Last one's from Molly. My shout out is to you. Wait, you two. Wait, my shout out is you two. Our first baby was born at 24 weeks. Oh my gosh, there's another one. And spent 100. This happened to someone else's shout out a few weeks ago. God, I feel for y'all. And spent 130 days in the NICU, but came home with no complications. Your podcast helped shut off my brain, laugh, and be entertained. Thanks for being a light during a very scary time for us. Hope you can quit your job soon. Thank you, Molly.
Oh, thank you, Molly. I'm
glad that you're all in the clear. I'm so glad.
Me too. Thank you all for joining
and for listening.
Y'all are the best.
People are the worst.
Bye.